Hello, I'm Toycat, and Minecraft 1.18 finally has a beta for Minecraft Bedrock. That's right, we can finally look at how the new generation is going to look on Bedrock platforms, and so I've been doing a lot of that, and it's amazing to just look and go, yeah, this is interesting, but today I wanted to give actual feedback about this update, the positives of it, looking at new biomes is amazing, but also the negatives of it, such as, finding this many diamonds without breaking a single block might be a bit of a problem, and so today I wanted to go through the 5 most positive and the 5 most negative things I have to say about the new generation. And just keep in mind, this is a beta. Things are intended to change, but those things can't change without feedback, which is what I'm giving in this video. Just like how you can't change whether you're subscribed to the channel without me mentioning that 55% of people who watch the channel don't do so. Wow, wouldn't you like to be in the 45% rather than the 55%? I bet you would. By the way, for some reason this actually works and people do subscribe when you tell them that a lot of people don't, so I guess we're throwing that in the video, but let's get right into it, shall we? And so we need to start with the very obvious, very important truth that of course the new world generation is stunning. I mean, it's stunning when there aren't visual glitches, but it's really, really nice to look around at these new cliffs and be like, yes, that is terrain I want to look at, I want to explore. It's terrain that really inspires you, and they've done a good job at making an update where it's not just making the terrain slightly taller, it's actually making a whole new Minecraft world that you want to look around and you want to explore, and that's not just true for above the surface, it's also true for below. Take, for example, this, cave entrance right here. Caves look wonderful, not just from the inside, but also from the outside. There are so many cave entrances like this one that are just enticing you so hard to go in, with this giant stalactite, with this giant open area with some waterfalls leading you down into the center, and even an abandoned mineshaft peeking out, which has now been improved with those little wooden pillars. This is really something to hold your eyes onto, but it's also going to be our first big negative, because although this is a wonderful cave to look at, if we can get down without taking too much damage here, you'll see that there's a little bit of a downside to having caves be so accessible, because I think that, interestingly enough, caves are actually too accessible in this update. That sounds like, heresy to people who say, no, everything should be accessible all the time, of course, but if we actually go down into this cave, we follow that one waterfall into this second cave, because caves are so connected and because you can just follow them endlessly, it's so easy to get down below. Right now, I'm at negative 6y. This is the whole new depth in the Minecraft world that should have been a interesting challenge to explore, but instead I just jump into a couple of waterfalls and I find myself at minus 55. This should be a place that you can, eventually get to, the deepest depths that has some rewards for being this low down, but instead it's just a place that's like, oh yeah, you followed 2 caves and now you're at the lowest layers in Minecraft, and it's not a problem with the reward system. Don't get me wrong, there's a ton of rewards. You can find diamonds down here. In fact, I think it's a bit too easy to find diamonds because of the fact that you can get down to this layer without breaking a single block. You can get your hands on not just 1 vein of diamonds, not just 2 veins of diamonds, not just 3 veins of diamonds, not just 4 veins of diamonds, as you can see over here. Actually, not just 5 veins of diamonds, as you can see up there. Actually, not just 6 veins. Do you get the point already? There are so many diamonds, and although they can work on making diamonds less likely to spawn openly in caves, I don't think that is all the way to the correct solution. I think that Minecraft's progression is broken not by finding too many diamonds when you find a rare big cave, but just by making that rare big cave a little bit too accessible from the surface. And again, I love this design. I love this being a thing you can eventually find. I think 6 to 7 veins of diamonds is definitely too high a reward, and making that entirely accessible to anyone, regardless of having any pickaxe, might be a bit too high, but that's just my opinion personally. It is a big downside to this update that there's all of this new depth, but it's a little bit too easy to explore. The game is taking you down vertically a little bit too often for my liking. It should be a bit of a challenge to get down to the lower steps. It shouldn't just be a thing the game throws at you and says, yeah, here you go, hope you enjoy it. Do you like all the new ores it comes with, by the way? Or the new depth, in my case. So the second thing I think needs to be praised about how Minecraft is handling the 1.18 generation has to be the water part of it, because water is not only going to spawn in caves and as a way to get you into caves. There are underwater cave entrances, it's very exciting, but also we now officially have lakes as a part of Minecraft's generation. Previously we had very small oceans and we had these little miniature water lakes that existed that, can you really really call them a lake. Let me find you an example. There's one over there of like, you know, you'd find these all the time in your world and it'd be like, what is the point besides finding water? And, you know, Minecraft appreciates that, yeah, water is much more abundant. Players know what's going on now. So now water is used to make the scenery wonderful. Look at this little lake right here. I think it does a good job of being interesting terrain. And even better than just lakes is the rivers, in my opinion. Because gone are the days where you'd have to break your boat or you'd have to constantly be weaving through narrow gaps. Now rivers actually look like rivers, and as you can see, it's easy to get around. There's a azalea tree blocking this river right here, but as you can see otherwise, it's very, very easy to navigate rivers by boat now, and so boat is actually a way to navigate the mainland, especially because rivers are slightly less windy, slightly less obnoxious, and slightly less likely to just double back on themselves, which, again, doesn't make any sense in the grand scheme of things. You know, although there's some nitpicks to be had with rivers, like, you know, they don't actually work like rivers now. They don't go from mountains to the ocean entirely. It's often ocean to ocean rivers, which is technically not a river in itself, but that's a little side point. But I think the overall opinion is that rivers are much better. They look much better, they function much better, and they have a much more realistic and interesting feel in your Minecraft world. Also, just as an aside, because I record all Minecraft beta videos on Pocket Edition, did you know this is how the boat controls look on touch? They've got steer right, steer left, or you can steer both at the same time to go forwards. I don't know, it's been a while since I've seen a lot of these touch buttons, and I think this is fun. Maybe you agree. Or maybe you disagree, and you'd like to hear my second complaint, because after riding my boat a very short ride, I've ended up at this. Actually, this isn't a mountain, but this also isn't. These two villages are very close together, though. I was going to say this is a mountain, but this might be the saddest mountain I think I've ever seen. You know what? In 1.18, we don't get to call this a mountain anymore, although we do still get to benefit from emerald generation, so that's nice. My second complaint, though, has to be the rarity of new mountains, or rather, maybe the lack thereof. I think there is a serious overestimation of how many mountains should be spawning in a Minecraft world, and sometimes that's great. Sometimes you want to see mountains all the time everywhere. You know, Minecraft's world generation looking amplified is really, really great sometimes, and especially with the Caves and Cliffs update part 2, having a lot of cliffs makes a lot of sense. However, for long-term Minecraft, you know, bear in mind, you know, 1.13 wasn't just for a year, it stuck with us forever. 1.14, again, all these village and never and etc. changes are going to be in the game forever, and the same with these cave and cliff generations. Do we want to have mountains be this common forever? A big part of me says no, and I feel like, I imagine they will tune this between the beta and for release some amount, but I would definitely say that right now, it's a tiny bit too common to find mountains. I don't want it to be a rare thing. I don't want it to be like, yes, finally found a mountain, but I also don't want it to be like, oh, there is another mountain, the third mountain that I can see from the same spot. And again, I totally understand why they group together in some places, but sometimes you're just like, yeah, I want flat again now. And I feel like mountains shouldn't overstay their welcome. If we've got this brand new, exciting thing, it shouldn't be 3 days in before we're like, please, take away the cliffs and the caves. I want to go back. Because again, that's it's an inevitable part of any update that eventually it just becomes normal, but becoming normal is better than becoming annoying, in my opinion. See the Phantom. So the third great thing about this update is how it is effectively creating a ton of new biomes. Minecraft has been very shy about creating new biomes post 1.8, which was almost a decade ago now. And so they added a brand new set of ocean biomes for 1.13, and a brand new subset of the jungle biome in 1.14, as well as new nether biomes. But the overall has been very, very scant on getting new generation updates. And let me tell you, this update does a very good job of effectively creating new biomes. Not just by, again, bringing us a brand new set of mountain biomes, which is interesting by itself, and also a brand new set of, rivers, which are effectively remade, but also every other biome has changed because now we have incredibly mountainous versions of them. Sure, we had Birch Forest Hills before, but this is not Birch Forest Hills, this is Birch Forest Mountains. This is going taller than any mountain generation that currently exists in Bedrock, and it's incredible to look at, right? Same thing is true for the fact that every biome has more transitions now, so if you look over here, the transition between this mountain and the Birch Forest interesting itself. The transition between the plains and the birch forest, also very interesting. The forest, as you can see, the trees get more and more common as you head into the biome to kind of transition you into it. I love that a lot. I love that every biome has effectively had an entire overhaul, and again, it makes Minecraft actually feel like an entirely different world. And so if they had to mess with the world generation anyway to add these mountains, and they did, by the way, a lot of seeds will be changing quite drastically in 1.18 it looks like. If they had to mess with the world generation anyway, I'm glad they actually made the substantial changes to make Minecraft really feel different. It's not an entirely different game, don't get me wrong, but this is clearly a world generation update to rival the update that changed the world, and that's something that I love. This is an update that changes the world. It's not the update that changes the world, but it's a great one nonetheless. With that said, let's move into the third point I'd like to raise, because here is another cave entrance that's entirely open. I love open cave entrances, don't get me wrong, but because of the nature of caves leading into caves, here is another example of how we can immediately jump right down to not only layer 0, but all the way down to minus 46. And then if we want to go lower, guess what? We can jump down there too, because there's a ravine-looking thing going through here. But here's the interesting thing about this update. Finding the new cave biomes feels a little bit rare right now. Right now, most of the caves feel like they're default caves, with every now and then finding a tiny one of these. Oh, by the way, again, without a single block being broken, you can find access to lots and lots and lots of diamonds. Is that a good thing? Debatable. I imagine they'll patch that in a lot of ways. But what I don't know if they will patch is how the brand new lush caves and the brand new dripstone caves work, because right now they feel way too small, and they feel like the rarity is like you don't find any for a bit and then you find a tiny one and that's it. I would much rather have a giant dripstone cave and then back to one of these and then to a lush cave and then eventually some deep dark. I feel like that's the way they should do these. I mean, honestly, my dream is, again, the way these biomes are now exposes that there aren't enough new biomes coming. But if we're just working within the fact that, yeah, there are 3 brand new cave biomes plus the existing one, I feel like they could be blended together much more interestingly. Don't get me wrong, this generation is stunning to look at. The size of these caves is insane, but it has to be said that the new biomes just aren't doing it for me, especially because we already have the blocks from these biomes in 1.17. That was a decision they made, and so there needs to be something special about these, and that mostly has to be appearance-based, right? Or the other blocks found within them, finding a lot of dripstone or a lot of dripstone blocks or a lot of clay or a lot of something else. And right now we just don't really have that. I mean, like, come on guys, is this a dripstone biome or is it not one? So my next big positive here is one that's going to sound weird to say, but I think this update did a really good job of delivering what was promised when we voted for mountains. By the way, that was in October of 2019, so it'll be 2 full years before it comes out, but I digress. And so this is something that's been a long time coming, and listening to the community and like getting it right is important, but also delivering on what they actually said they would be doing, which is of course giving goats snowier snow and new mountain generation. And when you look at this picture of the new mountain generation they showed off, as well as this one from the trailer with Jeb and and Lady Agnes, you can see that that generation looks a lot like some of the new mountains we can find right now. When we look at what the new caves were promised to be when we first saw Caves and Cliffs last year, when you compare that to this, it actually has a lot in common. The size was not compromised on. In fact, I think they've done the opposite. I think the only complaint anyone can have is that these caves are too large, and that is a complaint I'm so happy to have. I want you to complain that they're too large, because I love the size of these things. I think they're ludicrous, and I'm amazed that they managed to pull that one off. Again, every now and then, we have some issues with maybe not pulling it off perfectly, but like, look at this. It's a sea of lava in there. This is almost exactly like one of those caves we saw in the trailers, except this one's filled with lava instead of water. I love the fact that it wasn't, like deemed too ambitious. It wasn't this big failure. They managed to deliver on the expectations and the promises. It is, the only complaint you can have is that they did so too much, that they did so to to a ludicrous extent, or that they only delivered exactly the biomes they promised. But I feel like that is not enough criticism to justify the insanity that is looking around any of this. I'm going to have so much fun exploring these caves, and you don't even need night vision to explore this one because it pre-lights itself up. This is amazing. This should be the real way you get dripstone. That is a fun little challenge to get it, huh? And I love what I'm seeing. This is encouraging me to bring a Strider to the overworld, just so I can bring him around these caves. Wouldn't that be fun? I think it'd be fun. My next big negative definitely has to be microbiomes. I feel like this is something that's going to need a lot of tweaking, but I'd like to just also raise my dissatisfaction with how it's working in a lot of cases right now, because yesterday I saw these microbiomes, and they just were very ridiculous in size. I mean, give them a look and tell me you think that's how a biome should be sized. Here is a more realistic look at what a microbiome could be. This is a mesa that's just in the middle of nowhere, but even this feels a little off. I love it from a gameplay perspective, but it also feels very strange to find and to see. It feels like almost remixing current biomes to get new combinations by being like, ooh, what if it's a small mesa that focuses mostly on the trees? I feel like, again, the sizing is something that they're going to have to work on. The exact location is something they have to work on. And ultimately, it might be better just to have special biomes that spawn as these little micro things, rather than having small mesas or small anything else. Wouldn't it be... Also, this is actually a very large mesa, it seems, that is over here. I guess you could actually argue it's the mountain or the snow-capped peak that is the microbiome inside the mesa here. And that shows you the problem of size again. Like, isn't a mesa the hottest biome in Minecraft? Why is there this tiny amount of snow at not even the highest point in the biome? It's also confusing. Because, you know, this island up here, which I love the island generation. This is not a negative. This is an abject positive. I love this so much. Even this doesn't have snow on it, but down there, there's just some random spots. It's all very confusing, is what I'm saying. And microbiomes are just not fit for purpose right now. Again, in my dream, you would make custom biomes that would go there, rather than trying to make, you know, mesas a bit spicier, etc., and trying to effectively make new biomes of your current ones. It'd be like, yeah, now there's a small chance you have a rainforest, except a micro rainforest doesn't make any sense either. Most microbiomes don't make a lot of sense. Truth be told, right? But, yeah, the fact is, I feel like having brand new biomes, brand new cherry tree forests, or whatever else you want to do, is a much better idea than trying to just have a small version of another biome, because then it looks like a weird imitation. It looks like something's gone wrong, as opposed to an intentional feature. Maybe we'll all get used to it. Maybe when it comes out, we'll be like, yeah, we can get some snow without leaving my mesa. Or we can get some mesa without leaving my mountain biome. But right now, it's very weird, it's very strange, and that goes without saying, so I'm not going to criticize this one too much. Something I definitely can't criticize is what I love about this update as a whole, and that is that it is bringing exploration back. You heard me correctly, exploring your world is no longer that dumb thing that you do the first time you play Minecraft, and then never again because it's just not advantageous. Exploration is a good idea now for so many reasons. One is the fact that obviously, different biomes have different ores, and different heights have different ores. If you want diamonds super frequently, you go super low down. If you want gold, you come to this biome. Every ore is getting like its own little niche, its specific way to find it. But then also, looking around the world, you're going to find a lot of really great spots to find things. I mean, obviously, mesas have always been great for terracotta, but now you get these stunning vistas that you want to plant a house down on, while also being able to destroy certain, fractions of it. You get areas like this that just make you go, wow, this would make for an amazing, like a little place to have a base or something like that. There is so much terrain now that just makes you drop your jaw, and trying to find that in your Minecraft world is a surprisingly fun thing, I think it's going to be, at least in this update. As I fly around and look around any world, I'm just like, my god, not only are the caves worth exploring in their own rights, but the world above it, even if you never went down into those caves, even if they weren't updating the caves entirely, you'd be like, yeah, these worlds look different, they hit different, they have entirely fascinating vibes to them, with the new transitions and everything else like that. Looking around these worlds is exciting, and I've been doing so for a few weeks now, and I still find it to be endlessly interesting. That's why I'm making this video, because I want to share that interest with all of you, and I think that Minecraft's needed like an exploration update for a very long time, and I'm so glad they managed to pull one off in the form of Caves and Cliffs Part 2. Obviously, again, like with anything, it's going to age, and how well it will age is something we can only tell with time, but for now, this is enough to make you go, actually, yeah, new generation, that is something to be hyped about in a Minecraft update, all by itself. And that's something very positive to say. I was very worried for a long time that it would just be a no-point update where it's just like, yep, there are slightly mountainous mountains now, and there are new caves, go do it. But no, there is a whole new world for you to explore after this update. It feels like Minecraft, but remixed, and I love that. So to finish off on a negative, because I think it really needs to be said, performance is terrible. And I don't mean in just like, oh, render distance sucks, because render distance sucks. The speed at which chunks load in and the number of chunks you can see is going to be significantly reduced compared to before, but then as well as chunks sucking at loading in, there's a lot of frame rate dipping that happens, and that's to be expected. It's a beta. Again, this is something they can likely improve, but something I'm not sure they can improve is just the sheer amount of problems everywhere, in that, like, it's not just that there's not enough render distance and that there's frame dropping. This is frame dropping with all the sorts of techniques they're trying to pull to make the rendering easier. For instance, snowier snow, powdered snow, doesn't render in past a certain distance. You have to be really close for it to render. As you can see, these little patches of like air are actually just snowier snow that hasn't rendered. Why does it be this way? I mean, they know for a fact that snowier snow makes up a lot of the mountains, so why would it not render from a distance? Is it, I mean, because it's technically an entity, I'm guessing. They haven't made an exception yet. But the fact that we have all of these issues, plus the world is glitchy while trying to load them all in, it is a little bit of a concern of like, okay, so they need to add more features, and they need to work on performance, and they need to work on, adding more things that will, drain the performance. It seems like Minecraft is always having some issues, but my problem here is like not only the fact that they have got all those things to work through, it's just that it's not consistent. A low frame rate when consistent is fine, but frame drops followed by frame increases is just a janky, inconsistent experience. And, when you're playing on a PC, you kind of expect that sometimes, if it's a poorly optimized game. But when it's the world's most sold game, the fact that it happens already is a concern. I worry that in this update, they're going to fix a lot of it, but they won't fix all of it, and we'll get an update that's worth exploring, but it'll be a lot more painful than previously. Again, my big fear with any Minecraft update is that everyone just wishes they could go back to them before. I feel like that's, everyone at Mojang's big fear too. And in terms of performance, there is an abject downside to this update, and it sounds like there might be more than one objective downside, and that is a problem, in my opinion. But what is my opinion really, besides words that I'm saying with my mouth? And so, with that said, if you have opinions you'd like to share with your mouth, make sure to do them in the comments down below. That's right, type a comment using your mouth about what you think about caves and cliffs, and now you understand why there's so many nonsense comments down there, I assume. Actually, how well can you type your mouth? Let me know in the comments down below, and I'll see you all in the next video, unless there's a house fire or something. Goodbye!